There are things Freddie left behind that none of you know about, and things even I wasn't ready to face.
There are things Freddie left behind that none of you know about. Things even I wasn't ready to face. Mary Austin said those words decades after Freddie's passing, but even then she kept her eyes fixed on the floor, as if the truth she carried was still too raw to look at directly. The interviewer pressed her gently, but Mary refused to say more. Only now do we understand why. Because inside Garden Lodge, somewhere between memory and dust, Mary eventually found something Freddie had hidden intentionally. Not for Queen, not for the public, for one single person whose existence remained invisible to fans for more than 30 years. A small cassette labeled in Freddie's unmistakable handwriting, NC. Mary didn't know it then, but those two letters would unravel a story Freddie never shared. Not in interviews, not in songs, not even with the people closest to his heart. And when she finally pressed play, everything she thought she knew about Freddie Mercury changed. Garden Lodge had always been a place Mary both cherished and feared, half a museum, half a mausoleum. The house never fully let go of Freddie's presence. Even decades later, she could walk past a doorway and swear she heard faint humming or the creak of piano stools shifting. She avoided certain rooms, especially the storage spaces Freddie had stuffed with costumes, notebooks, reels, and instruments. But an early spring storm changed everything. A leak forced Mary to clear the old trunks under the staircase, a dim space Freddie used to call my little treasure pit. Most boxes were familiar. Tour memorabilia, fan mail, draft lyrics she'd seen before. But one wooden box was different, newer, lighter, and tucked behind a stack of film reels as if deliberately concealed. Etched on its lid were the words, "For when it's time." Inside lay a stack of personal items, Polaroids, sheet music she didn't recognize, and a small cassette wrapped in tissue paper, marked with two letters, NC. Mary stood frozen. This wasn't an archive item. It wasn't meant for public ears. It felt like Freddie was speaking directly to her again. She didn't dare listen alone, so she called the only person who had the right to hear it, Brian May. Brian May had not stepped inside Garden Lodge in years. When Mary called him, her voice trembling, he didn't ask questions. He simply said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." The moment he entered, the house hit him like a memory he wasn't prepared for. The faint scent of incense, the framed photos unchanged. Freddie's piano exactly where it always stood, the same stool pushed slightly off-center, as if the man himself had just risen from it moments before. Mary said quietly, "It's something Freddie left behind." Brian's breath caught. Even after all these years, the idea that Freddie might still have messages hidden somewhere felt impossible, and yet deeply believable. She guided him to the living room, where the wooden box sat open. Brian didn't need to ask what NC meant. He had no idea. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Mary placed the cassette in the old tape deck Freddie used for demos. For a moment, they simply stared at it, as if expecting it to explain itself. Then Brian whispered, "Should we?" Mary pressed play. A soft hiss. Then the faint sound of piano. Then Freddie Mercury's voice. Fragile, intimate, unlike anything Brian had ever heard. They looked at each other in disbelief. Whatever this was, Freddie had never told them. The tape began not with Freddie, but with a child. A small, trembling voice. "Hello, Mr. Mercury. My name is Noah Clarke. I'm in the hospital again. Thank you for the music." The boy paused to breathe. The recorder crackled. "I heard you can't always answer letters. That's okay. I just wanted you to know, your songs make me brave." Brian and Mary exchanged stunned looks. Who was Noah Clarke? And why had Freddie kept this tape hidden? The recording shifted. Then Freddie's voice entered. Soft, warm, unusually vulnerable. "Hello, Noah, darling. I heard your message. And I wrote something for you. Something only yours." Mary covered her mouth. Brian closed his eyes. Freddie began to sing. Not the powerhouse voice of Wembley, but something almost whispered. A lullaby born out of kindness, sorrow, and something deeper. Connection. "Little star, don't you fade tonight? The world is dark, but you're my light." The tape clicked. Another recording began. This time Freddie spoke more plainly. "Mary, if you're hearing this, it means time finally caught up with me. Keep this safe. It belongs to him." Mary felt a tear slide down her cheek. Noah must have passed away. And Freddie had never told a soul, but why? After the tape ended, Mary searched the wooden box again and found an envelope tucked beneath the reels. It was addressed in Freddie's handwriting, to be opened only if you find the tape. Inside was a folded letter, yellowed, ink fading, signed simply F. The message explained everything. He had met Noah Clarke through fan mail in 1989. The boy had leukemia. He listened to Queen during treatments and asked for a song that belongs only to me. Freddie had recorded the lullaby one winter night, planning to send it to Noah. But before he could mail the tape, Noah's mother wrote to say her son had passed away. Freddie never recovered from that letter. He stored the tape away, unable to destroy it, unable to share it. It became a scar he carried silently. Mary wiped her eyes. "I would have helped him," she whispered. "Why didn't he tell me?" Brian stared at the letter. "Because he wanted to protect you. He wanted to protect everyone." Freddie bore the pain alone, the way he'd done with so many things. But now, after all these years, his secret had surfaced when the world might finally understand it. Brian May stayed at Garden Lodge long after the tape finished. He listened again and again, trying to understand why Freddie buried something so personal. But there was something else Freddie said on the tape, something Brian couldn't shake. "I couldn't save him, Bri. But maybe one day the song will." Brian felt a chill run down his spine. Freddie had left this message not just for Noah, but for them, for the band, for the world. He wanted this heard, Brian whispered. He just didn't want to hurt the people he loved while he was alive. Mary nodded. "So what do we do with it?" Brian looked at the tape, then at Freddie's piano across the room. "We finish it." Freddie's recording was raw, just a single vocal and piano line. But the melody was beautiful, the lyrics were haunting, and the intent behind it was pure. Brian decided right then, he would rebuild the song around Freddie's voice. He would honor Noah, he would honor Freddie, and he would do it quietly, without the circus of publicity Freddie despised. Brian brought the tape to his home studio the next morning. He transferred the reel delicately, preserving every breath, every crack, every tiny imperfection Freddie left behind. Roger visited a week later. The moment Freddie's voice played, he froze as if struck by lightning. "That's him," Roger whispered. "Not the performer, the real Freddie." Together they began to shape the song, keeping Freddie's original vocal untouched. Roger added soft percussion, barely audible like a heartbeat. Brian weaved harmonies around the melody, careful not to overpower the intimate tenderness Freddie had recorded. It took weeks, not because the song was difficult, but because they kept stopping, overwhelmed by emotion. Sometimes Brian would simply pause and let Freddie's voice fill the room, tears in his eyes. "It feels like he's here," he said once, barely above a whisper. Roger replied, "Maybe he is." When the final mix was complete, the studio fell silent. No one spoke for nearly a minute. Then Brian said, "It's time." But instead of releasing it to the world, he and Mary had one final mission: to find Noah Clarke's family. Mary still had the original envelope Noah sent Freddie in 1989. Using the address, she and Brian traced the Clarke family to a small village outside Bristol. Noah's parents were elderly now, soft-spoken, gentle people who seemed surprised to receive visitors. But when Mary introduced herself, the mother's hand flew to her mouth. "You're Mary?" she whispered. "Freddie spoke of you." The father brought out a small tin box from a drawer. Inside was the cassette Freddie mailed before he learned Noah had passed. It contained only 30 seconds of melody, unfinished. "My son listened to those 30 seconds every day," the mother said. "He believed Freddie would finish the song someday." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "Well," she whispered, "he finally has." Brian played the restored recording for them privately. Noah's mother cried silently the whole time, clutching the Polaroid of her son. "It's like hearing Freddie say goodbye to him," she whispered. The family gave their blessing for the release, but asked for one thing. "Don't make it about illness," the father said. "Make it about hope." Brian nodded. That's exactly what Freddie intended. The band released the track quietly without teasers or announcements. Just a title. Freddie Mercury, Little Star for NC. Within hours, fans noticed the initials. Speculation exploded. Who was NC? Was it a lover? A friend? A secret? But the moment the song began to spread, the speculation stopped. Freddie's voice was soft, intimate, trembling with emotion, stunned listeners. TikTok flooded with reaction videos. Fans cried openly. "You can hear his soul. It feels like he's singing just to me. This is the real Freddie." The press tried to dissect the mystery, but Queen refused interviews. The Clarke family stayed anonymous, and Mary said nothing. But every child in a hospital room who heard the lullaby seemed to understand instantly. This was a song written for one child, and gifted decades later to millions who needed it. And in the middle of the storm, Brian posted a single sentence on his website. He wanted this song to save someone. It did. 2 weeks after the release, fans discovered something extraordinary. Each verse of Freddie's handwritten lyrics began with a specific letter. When placed together, they spelled NOAH. Forums erupted. It's a tribute. He immortalized the boy in the structure of the song. He encoded his name into the melody. Historians examined the handwriting and confirmed the notes were genuine. This wasn't an accident. Freddie had woven Noah Clarke into the very architecture of the music. Brian wrote privately to Mary. Of course he did. Freddie always told his real stories in the margins. The revelation turned Little Star into a global symbol of remembrance. Fans lit candles. Artists painted murals. Cancer charities adopted the song. And Noah, the boy no one knew, became part of Queen's legacy. The song raised millions for children's hospitals around the world. But the moment that defined everything happened months later, at a Queen tribute concert in London. The stadium lights dimmed. A single spotlight illuminated Freddie's empty microphone stand, and then his voice began. Pure, soft, timeless. Brian walked onto the stage slowly, carrying his guitar like a memory. He played along to Freddie's recording, tears streaming down his face. The entire arena fell silent. Thousands of people holding candles instead of phones. When the final note faded, Brian whispered into the mic, "Good night, little star." Not to Freddie, but to Noah. The crowd wept openly, because in the end, Freddie Mercury's greatest legacy wasn't his fame, his fashion, or even his voice. It was his humanity, the part he tried so hard to hide. The part that wrote a lullaby for a dying child and hid it for decades, waiting for the right moment to heal the world. Little Star did exactly what Freddie hoped, shone when everything else felt dark. And now, his secret, and Noah's light, and will never fade,